they never believe me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball, I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic gotta say, I got them picking up the pieces. That mean you really playing with your life, I'm about to come and run it all back. I'm the new era, about to snap back. You ain't fitting for it, cause you all cap like. Hold up, I shoot my shot, wait, hold up. I'm really about to run this, go up. You know it's all net when it go up. Ain't got no other plans, you don't need to understand, ayy. We on overtime, you don't need to understand, ayy. You just show them how to do it when you don't know what to say. Tell me how you plan to win if you plan to play it safe. Moving fast, already gone, yeah, but you bringing me back. Try to double cross me, dog, just let me relax. Stop assuming what we doing, keep it moving, what we doing. Cause it can get big right, cause it can get big right. Please don't play no games with me, I promise I'm too much. Ay, I can never let up even if you had enough. Ay, this ain't for the faint of heart, we always playing rough. I had enough, it ain't luck. I needed a vision, I needed ambition, I needed a mission to beat in submission with no intermission. I see the collision, the crash in the distance ain't coming off track, no. Now when they ask what's the motive, don't talk about the show them. They all about to see what I mean in the moment. I gotta keep going, I'm shaking the dice and I'm keeping it rolling. They already know. Ain't got no other plans, you don't need to understand, ayy. We on overtime, you don't need to understand, ayy. You just show them how to do it when you don't know what to say. Tell me how you plan to win if you plan to play it safe. Moving fast, already gone, yeah, but you bringing me back. Try to double cross me, dog, just let me relax. Stop assuming what we doing, keep it moving, what we doing. Cause it can get big right, cause it can get big right, cause it can get big right.
Ladies and gentlemen, what's good, ATP? It's your boy Claymore Rain back at you guys. Got some boxing to catch up on, you know, strategy. Stepping into this space. Shout out to everybody who's tapped in right now. If this is your first time tapping in, of course, subscribe to the channel. But obviously, you guys know the rules. As you step into the building, take a moment to go ahead and hit that like button, right? Boxing's doing great. Hope everybody's in a great space. It's a beautiful day, Saturday. Everybody's having a long week of work and catching up and running around. This is your time to let your hair down. College football is on. Bunch of games getting ready to spin today, tomorrow. We got NFL football, all types of things going on. But at the same exact time, we've got boxing going on, right? A lot of boxing going on. So we're going to build on that boxing today. A lot of things in the news today. Still feeling the aftermath of Terrence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez. That interview with Andre Ward and Terrence Crawford getting a lot of spin time. Some people catching up late, catching up on some of the things that Terrence Crawford has said. On the back end of that, we see Terrence Crawford and Turki Al-Sheikh link up after this whole thing has cleared up. And, it does seem like Terrence Crawford's going to be hanging back and probably going to give us a couple more fights. So shout out to that. Shout out to that. All right? Shout out to that. For sure. We're going to be looking forward to see what Terrence is going to do. And ultimately, let's see where he ends up at. We'll talk about 160 pounds, obviously, today, getting some news as well as JANIBEK and LARA seem like they're coordinating to be on or have coordinated, maybe past tense, already penned out for them to co-headline the LAMONT ROACH ESOC Cruise card in December. So we'll finally get another unification at 160 pounds. This one I'll have 3 belts on the line. JANIBEK holding 2 of them. And we know Arizlan Lara bringing that WBA title into the conversation. So at the end of that fight, there'll be a 3-belt unified champion at 160 pounds. That does leak right into the idea of Terrence Crawford potentially showing up at 160 pounds to add more to his legacy, more paydays, more huge fights. We got to see what Carlos Adames is going to do as well. We're not expecting to hear anything from Terrence Crawford probably toward the end of this year, or maybe even the early 2026 for him to make an announcement of one way or another what he plans on doing. Turki says about a month or two he plans on making an announcement with Terrence Crawford. Sounds like it might even be a home game for Terrence Crawford. This one might end up being in Nebraska, whoever he chooses to fight in Nebraska, we'll see what that looks like. Whether it'll be maybe Carlos Adames, might be getting ready for a fight with Terrence Crawford, or maybe even a rematch with Canelo Alvarez. Who knows, right? So 160 is looking very interesting. We'll talk about JANIBEK and Erislandy Lara and how that fight's looking. PBC in the news as well, getting some scrutiny right now for the pay-per-view model that they're very committed to delivering to the fans. That product seems to be getting a lot of scrutiny now with 2 pay-per-views getting ready to show up. One of them coming up in a few weeks here with Keith Thurman and Sebastian Fundora. People are questioning whether or not that makes any sense for them to be putting that on a pay-per-view. And of course, this Lamont Roach Esau Pitbull Cruz card, these guys headlining this card for an interim WBC title at 140 pounds. How do we feel about that, right? This pay-per-view model, are they going to catch up? What's the game plan for the PBC going into 2026? We watched them take 2 of their face of boxings, 2 of their biggest draws, and David Benavidez and Gervonta Tank Davis seem to be performing on other platforms, one with Turkey and Riyadh, obviously, and obviously we see Tank recently announcing opening up his press conference tour with Jake Paul to fight on a Netflix MVP card, fighting against Jake Paul. So, what's in the future of the PBC with this pay-per-view model? This doesn't seem to be getting received very well as far as these fights being on pay-per-view. You know what I mean? In all honesty. But we'll talk about that as well. Both cards seem to have decent co-headliners. Shaki Foster and Stephen Fulton headlining on that Stephen Fulton Keith Thurman card, and on that Sebastian Fundora Keith Thurman card, and and now announced JANIBEK and Erislandy Lara, a unification at 160 pounds on this card that's supposedly going to be a pay-per-view card. So we'll see how that ends up working out, right? And we'll talk about that a little bit as well. Other news, at 135 pounds, we have some information where the IBF looks like they're back on Raymond Mortala's head, announcing ordering a mandatory title defense against up-and-comer prospect turned contender, decorated Olympian, amateur turned professional, Andy Cruz, right? Out of that Eddie Hearn Matchroom camp. Looks like Andy Cruz is going to get his opportunity to become a champion sometime early 2026. This on the back end of what looks like, from the outside looking in, looks like Stephen Schofield Jr. I said Stephen Schofield Jr. Jesus. Floyd Schofield Jr. Floyd Schofield Jr. Looking like negotiations fell through with those guys, right? That didn't end up working out. Floyd Schofield's getting ready to fight against Jojo Diaz. So back to the drawing board. Raymond Mortala, Andy Cruz seem to be back in the conversation. Andy Cruz does get his opportunity to become a champion. Nice stoppage in his last fight, but this guy about 6 fights into his professional career. Are they moving him too fast, or is this right where he needs to be? Either way, when opportunity knocks, you got to answer it, right? It is what it is. News also spinning the block. David Morrell and Caleb Smith seem like they're finalizing negotiations. This one for an early 2026 show out, that these guys will be fighting for that interim or regular, I don't know what you want to call it. What is it? An interim WBO title that Caleb Smith is currently holding down. We know 175 is jumping up, moving around. David Benavidez will be fighting David Adelaide. Excuse me, not say David Adelaide. Man, I'm in another world today. I feel like I just woke up or something. Anyway, Anthony Yardy. David Benavidez will be defending his WBC title, WBC full title and WBA regular title against Anthony Yardy. So definitely this Caleb Smith and David Morrell fight, a big-time fight, significant fight in the division, as the division is becoming more and more interesting, right? We just watched Najee Lopez a couple of weeks ago doing the work as well. We know a lot of movements happening in 175 pounds. What else is going on? Brian Norman Jr. Looking light on his feet, moving around a lot more in his camp. Funny, we'll talk about that, because watching Devin Haney get stronger in his camp, right? Supposedly, right? He's getting stronger. We see him doing the medicine ball training, and it looks like he's getting that power together, right? And everybody's interested in what this version of Devin Haney is going to look like. There's always been rumors about Devin Haney having crazy camps, getting ready for these fights as far as sparring is concerned, the dog that he has, but we really haven't seen it manifest that way in all of his fights, specifically in his last 2 fights, Jose Ramirez and against Ryan Garcia. We saw him not we saw him freely choose not to be that fighter. Well, it looks like in this fight he might be changing it up a little bit. We'll talk about that as well, because it's funny because Brian Norman's going the other direction as well, as he's working on his foot movement. He's working on his speed, on his boxing acumen, and then you're watching Devin Haney in the other camp working on his power and things of that nature. So both these guys are going to show a lot of wrinkles to their game on November 22nd. And the question is, whose backyard? You know what I mean? Is Brian Norman going to be comfortable in Devin Haney's backyard, and vice versa? Is Devin Haney going to be comfortable in Brian Norman's backyard, as both these guys seem to be ready to showcase a whole lot of wrinkles to their game that they didn't have before. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about a bunch of other stuff too as they come out, and at some point later on we'll open up the panel and have the usual suspects up here building on this boxing. And of course, without delay, of course, we got to bring up co-host Ray M. Effin Davis. Ray. What's good, Ray? What's good?
Chilling, man, like a bad villain. I'm feeling like Brian Norman right now, man. Taking on a new craft, countering and moving my feet. So,
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we're gonna talk about boxing today, man. So, we're gonna do what we love to do. Man, I was up. Shout out to Culture Nerd, said he saw Showbiz roasting me. Showbiz roasted me the other day. I went up on there. I said, "What's up?" And he saw me and he acknowledged me. You know what I mean? He's like, "Oh, Claymore, is that really you?" Blah, blah, blah. He was like, "Yo, Claymore, you look just like Clubber Lang, man." He's like, "I swear to God." He's like, it's like your head and your neck,
bro.
You know what I'm saying? So
don't
he's
tell,
like,
"Well, tell me you said it first." No, give me credit for saying it first.
Yeah, you said I gotta lace you up with a baseball bat. I've been looking at you as a big dude of this and that, and I'm like, damn, man, this dude roasted me, but it was love. No, it was definitely all love. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's crazy that I said that shit. But 4 years ago, they sent you the big poster for the back of the wall.
Yeah, I don't know, it was 4 years ago, but it was a little while ago.
Yeah, it was 4 years. We've been doing the show for 2.5 years. All right, maybe 2.5. You're right. The time be flying, bro. I don't know. It seemed like 4 years. All right, it was 2.5. Well, salute everybody.
Yeah, Showbiz roasted me, but it was a good roast, man. It was actually an honorable roast, right? Like it was a roast I respected, because Showbiz is a needle mover in the space. So it was good to know that he even knew my name and that he even knew, I mean, he was like, "Yo, is that really you, Clay?" And I was like, "Oh, that's what's up, bro," because I really missed an opportunity to meet Showbiz personally in New York. I had an opportunity and I missed him, but you know what I'm saying? I missed the opportunity.
Follow the shag, man. Follow the shag.
You know what I mean? So it was cool. It was cool to be noticed in the game. It's good to be noticed in the game, one way or the other. Obviously, you got some people who have opposite different experiences with the kid. But
listen, man, he's
Denzel says whatever you gotta tell yourself.
Yo, he's a good dude, man. I think he even thinks I confront him on a few things sometimes, but I only just try to bring perspective to stuff he says sometimes, because he builds what he builds. It's his content. It's the way he want to do it, bro. And I ain't mad at it. What's up, Mark? I have no problem with Showbiz. I think Showbiz is one of the greatest storytellers. I'm going to use that phrase. And what I mean by that is he knows how to explain and build things from his thoughts and how he believes it. And he can tell you to make you understand. Know what I mean? Where he coming from. Rather it be in any fashion, he's able to do so and make everybody and his followers understand him. And he doesn't get at people for disagreeing with him. You know what I mean? Like he kind of threw me a shot one day. But I explained to him, he's like, "No, it's all good, brother." You know what I mean? He's respectful. He's not yeah, he threw me a shot, but it wasn't like disrespectful or nothing. I just explained to him or something on his takes, and he was like, but it is what it is. That's your opinion. And I was like, absolutely, my brother. You know what I mean? I get it. Yeah, shout out to Mark Nash with the $2 holla. You know what I mean? Match my donation to support the show. Y'all heard him. Y'all heard the man. Matter of fact, while y'all matching these donations, support the channel. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't, because I'm telling you, ain't nothing but the best content here. For real. And if you haven't, hit that notification bell while you at it, because we only bringing you the best. But go ahead, Clay.
Yeah, but it was cool. You know what I'm saying? It was. Hold on a second here. What am I looking here? Okay.
Oh, shout out!
I was looking at something else.
Frequency.
But yeah, so decent week. You know, I mean, a lot of stuff happening in the boxing space. It was good to be shouted out by Showbiz. That was fun, and watching everything turning out in the game right now. 160 looks like it's getting real interesting. I see a lot of people still trying to push back. People are just now seeming to get on that Andre Ward, Bud Crawford interview, which I thought, like I said, you know,
I'm glad I caught it.
I think it's an interview everybody should catch. It's definitely official. You know what I'm saying? Definitely an official story, man. Movie worthy career so far for Terrence Crawford. And I say so far because clearly he still has more that he plans on adding to the that he's trying to accomplish. You know what I mean? But it's hilarious, you know, at this point in the game. You know, it is kind of like funny to watch people. Like you watch Showbiz, for example, who, you know, he had picked Canelo Alvarez to beat Terrence Crawford, and he gave like legitimate reasons why. You know, he talked about you know, the power obviously that Canelo Alvarez had, the acclamation that Terrence didn't have to the division, and a bunch of other parts. But ultimately, you know, proof's in the pudding, right? So he saw Terrence give the performance that he did, and you know, now he's dialing back, saying, "Listen, I got to give Terrence all his respect." Right? He's down. Right. And I'm sure he had respect for Terrence anyway going into that fight, but definitely I think Terrence Crawford in the Canelo Alvarez fight has recalibrated a lot of people's aptitude in boxing, right? Like it's recalibrated and giving people some you know, there's some gray areas. There's special fighter criteria and regular fighter criteria. And when you're talking about special fighters and you identify a special fighter, that intangible plays a big part in the possibilities of a fight and what will end up happening at the end of a fight. So people are having to revisit now. You even hear, I heard Biz talking about the Lamont Roach and Isaac Cruz fight, and you know, just getting to the fact that, all right, the facts is, you know, you have this fighter who comes forward, who punches hard, a lot of volume, a lot of pressure, and then you have this other fighter who's a boxer, but this fighter in Lamont Roach did something special against Tank Davis, made Tank Davis look regular, showed that he had a lot more wrinkles to his game. But now you see him going up another weight class. You know what I mean? He only had one fight at 135, which was against arguably at the time the best 135 pounder in the game. And now he's going up to 140 to fight Isaac Pitbull Cruz and have this common opponent with Tank Davis. I think it's easy to just call it and be like, all right, well, Lamont Roach should win this fight. He's going to outbox. If Mario Venezuela could put on the performance he did against Isaac, then we believe that Lamont can do it. And I want to say, yeah, we could believe it. But this more importantly, I think at the end of the day, this is going to be a big test for Lamont Roach, right? This is going to be the litmus test. This is going to let us know if Tank Davis, I mean, we don't like to use triangle theories too much, but you can't help but, you know, you try to be apples to apples as much as you can, but every now and then it's an apple to oranges. But I think the right performance here against Isaac Pitbull Cruz will definitely legitimize who Lamont Roach is. He's gotten a lot of attention behind him right now because of that fight with Tank Davis. A lot of people would say he's riding the coattails of Tank Davis a little bit, just the energy he's carrying. People would say that, but I think this right here would give the separation, right? This would allow him to walk on his own accord right here with proper performance against Isaac Pitbull Cruz, right? What do you think?
Yeah. You want to hit those super chats real quick before I dive into that?
Yeah, I actually want to. I'm actually going to run through the
line. You write this down. Go ahead.
Salute to my guy Esad Easy in the building, of course. Came in, stepped in earlier in, this morning. My boy blessing us with good boxing talk this week. Salute to the good guy, Claymore Rain. Salute to my guy, Mac Majestic in the building. Salute, Mac Majestic. Country Q 25 in the building. Salute to you. JM in the building. So let's go, Rain. Let's go, JM. Fly Frequency, my brother in the building. Shoot me the salams. We're making salam back at you, fam. Culture Nerds, of course, reminded me about Biz roasting me on the show the other day. Salute. Salute to Woo in the building. How you doing, Queen? Says, hey, Clay. Crypto Chris in the building. Salute to you, Crypto Chris. Saying salute, Clay. Country Q 25. Okay. Shock. The Shock versus Cool Boy fight. No doubt. Mark Nash in the building. Salute to Mark Nash. TVO Mark, man. Definitely interested in I don't know if we want to talk at some point, but I'm trying to come down to Atlanta at some point. More than likely after this fight, obviously, with Brian. I don't know, man. I want to coordinate. So I'm gonna call Senior too as well. Reach out to Senior, but shout out to Mark Nash TV in the building. Let me see here. Denzel Horton in the building said, "You let Showbiz roast you." Yeah, Denzel. I let him get me, bro. He got me, bro. He got me, bro. Culture Nerd said, yeah, it was all love. It's a Midwest thing. We're gonna always crack a joke. Yeah, no. Like I said, man, it was all love. You could feel it was all love. Like it was love. It was a lot of respect. Biz was really like, nah, you know what I'm saying? It was nothing but love. Mark Nash says, I look like a Marvin villain, and bro looks like Miro. And bro looks like Miro. Are you the Miro? You look like Miro, and I look like a villain.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Shout out to my brother Mark Nash TV with the first piece of color in the chat today, saying match my donation to support the show. Yeah, do like my guy Mark Nash said, man. Show some love. You already know any color you put in the chat super supports the channel, man. I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys in advance for hitting those like buttons as well and helping the channel expand and get bigger. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, take a moment to do that as well. Mine, yours in the building says salute Clay and Ray. Salute back at you, fam. Culture Nerds with a little more color in the chat. The $2 says Mark got you. Salute, guys. Yeah, Culture Nerds, man. Join the party. You know what I'm saying? Mark Nash says only gripe with Showbiz was he used clips from my interview, didn't give credit, use the quotes for the interview out of context. Yeah, it gets like that sometime out in the space, right? Creating content sometimes. It is important, though, to give credit to these other creators. You know what I'm saying? When you're using their footage, they're working on their channels as well, and they're not pulling the rug from under you, right? And calling copyright problems and making it where you can't use their content. So yeah, you know, I agree with you, man. It's always important to go ahead and give respect. Shout out to my brother Ray Davis, matching that energy of Mark Nash TV with the $2 holla in the building. The Butcher in the building. Salute Claymore. Salute back at you, Butcher. Salute. Let me see here. What's it? Clay, he be wrong way too much. I get how he pod, but he's just an entertainer. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he be wrong. It's just an opinion, right? It's just perspective. The one thing there's a few things I like about Showbiz, but I'll say the biggest thing I always like about him is he tries to follow up whatever he says with actual facts. He gives you perspective as to why he's saying what he's saying. Whether you agree or disagree with it, he's not just talking out the side of his neck. He tries to use stats and data, and you can tell Showbiz is a big time data guy, like data analyst. He likes to crunch the numbers. He does that, you know. So, but boxing is a game of intangibles. You know, there's the data, there's what the numbers and the facts say, but there's always the intangibles. And I think Terrence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez kind of like highlighted that, the fact that the intangibles deserve their weight, they hold their weight in gold, right? The intangibles, the unknowns, the I don't knows hold a lot of weight. And you know, what you know is important for sure, though. But the intangibles play a big difference in it, man. Sonny Augustine in the building saying salute Claymore and Ray. Salute, man. What up, my guy Keon in the building, everything boxing. What up, y'all? What up, man? What's good, Keon? What's good, man? And ETB, everything boxing, showing love to the channel with the $5 holla, man. I appreciate
raising
support
the
to
bar.
the channel. Thank you for the support, man. Thank you for the support, man. Well, I'm gonna send it back at you, Ray, because I don't know if you remember, but you was definitely about to build.
Yeah. Shout out to Crypto Chris jumping in. You know what I mean? Peace. What's up? Listen, man, that Lamont Roach and Pitbull Cruz fight is a very interesting one. I think the way Ryan Venezuela fought him was definitely the best way to fight him. You can fight him the way Gervonta did, which was kind of like inside, regardless of his hand being hurt, but inside, catching him through his punches, almost like Shakur did with Zepeda. You can do so. But it's living dangerously when you fight Pitbull Cruz that way. I think Lamont Roach is that type of fighter anyway. He likes to counter. He's not really a fluent bounce on your toes outside moving fighter. He's an in-your-face guy. He likes to smother your punches and try to catch you in between. And I think that can be very dangerous. Now, we could see I have to go to Pitbull's resume, but we could see because I remember the Argentina guy, Sergio something.
No, you want Giovanni Santilli? I mean, no, not Giovanni. Cabrera.
Cabrera, thank you.
Yeah.
When Cabrera fought him, he matched him energy for energy, and it made him very uncomfortable. Even his last fight he took, everybody expected him to blow the other Mexican dude out the water, and that wasn't even working in his favor. So Pitbull could even be one washed up and just not ready for the division, is just too big for him, or it could be he's at a different style now where the he just is not the same guy. You know what I mean? People figured him out. It could be one or the other.
I mean, on the other hand, could it be that Pitbull is just that he is the same guy, and that's the issue. You know,
That's what I'm saying.
right?
That's
Like he's not. It's not that he's digressing. It's that he's not evolving. Right? He's one
Right.
dimensional. He's just and people just
People
starting
are
to
figuring them out,
understand
right?
how to deal with
And that's
that.
what I'm saying. Yeah, so they figuring them out, and they know how to attack them and punch through those overhand rights and lefts that just keep coming over the top, and those uppercuts when he gets inside. They know how to keep him grounded. You know what I mean? And that could be the change. The problem I see is Lamont Roach is the opposite of what we would see with a Ryan Venezuela.
100%.
And I think that that could put him in a load of trouble, especially if Pitbull comes out there and does what he has to do in a sense of fighting the way he fights with a Pitbull Cruz. That could put him in a lot of danger, Clay, and walk him into some shots that he don't see coming, especially him moving up, not one, but now 2 weights from where he is champion. That also is significant to realize that, you know, Pitbull's been fighting at 140 for now 2 years. You know what I mean? So he's definitely been taking the heavier of the punches. So Lamont Roach now coming from 130 to 135 and then going right into 140. Another person holding on to the belts, by the way. Need to drop that thing.
No, look, man,
Keep it real. But
these guys, as long as they're active, it's like that. The activity is important to me because
right.
I also don't want to shy away from the idea that I understand the leverage that the titles give them in negotiating new opportunities, right? Until you see it play out, it's like you don't know why. Like we watch Terrence Crawford do it, but we also watch him leverage those titles into other opportunities, especially with the fighters that aren't the A sides, people aren't just jumping into the ring with. You got to use every bit of leverage you got, right? Whatever leverage you got with a sanctioning body, whatever you can do. So sometimes the looks look like they're just holding on to it for no reason, but then on the other side is a fighter who's also trying to catapult their career in a certain way, and they're trying to use whatever they have. It's like whatever tool, whatever weapon you have, you don't want to give it up unnecessarily. It's like, well, nobody's pressuring me. I'm gonna let the sanctioning bodies do their job, and I'm gonna do my job, right? And try to find my opportunities. If y'all want the belt, come take it from me. It's y'all belt. But if you're not gonna take it from me, I'm not going to just give it to you.
But here's the problem I have with that though, Clay. He has a mandatory at 135.
Right.
You know what I mean? 130, excuse me, 130. So now you're dancing around these other divisions and you're holding on to the belt, and that mandatory is frozen. And I think that's where the biggest problem lies in. If he was going to satisfy the mandatory instead of keep pushing it back because he's looking for other opportunities to get in the championship matches, that's fine. But he's leveraging the belt. He's not even fighting the champion. He's fighting for a secondary title with Pitbull. He's not even fighting for the real belt. He's just moving the position. So I think that right there is significant enough to say that, you know what I mean, it's time to drop the belt because you're not really using that belt to move. You're going to get that fight anyway because you're a champion moving up. So drop it and move forward. If you plan on going down to 130 again, that's a different story. But then you should have satisfied that mandatory already. And I think that's where the icing on the cake is. And we heard that him saying that when he was talking about he was waiting for the Gervonta fight. He was like he had a mandatory where he could have made, you know what I mean, some good money fighting that guy. And unfortunately, he didn't make that money, and he's moving up to bigger and better pastures because I think the PVC owes him a fight. That's why he's getting this fight. Be honest with you, I think, you know, once the paper washes all the hands and we get where we got to go. Oh, listen, we got an opponent for you. He's been sitting waiting to fight. We're gonna get you Pitbull Cruz. That's what I really think that happened. I think that WBA is understanding to that, and I think that's why we're in the position that in the fight that we're in now. But hey, man, it is what it is. I just think that there's a lot going on and a little too much in that whole criteria of that business. And but settle for less, man. It's gonna be a good fight. Two guys, you know what I mean? Both fought Gervonta Davis. Both gave him hard fights. I mean, Pitbull not so much a hard fight. People thought it was. He gave what's the name of hard fight? Tank. So this should be a good matchup, man. Triangle Theory on in its realest right now. So we get to see what really happens.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's going to be one of those fights where stylistically it's going to be a very interesting fight for both those guys because I think Lamont Roach doesn't move around like Ryo, like you mentioned earlier. There is a big difference between the way they fight, and we watch fighters we watched Robert Garcia capitalize on what he saw Cabrera do against Isak Cruz and with the movement and everything like that, but we didn't really watch Ryo Venezuela make Isak really pay as much, right? Like he used a little bit of his power and a little bit of his counter punching when he got cornered too, right? But he kind of, if it was up to him, it looked like Robert Garcia and Raya was almost trying to operate on that same game plan that Devin did against Jose Ramirez. It's just that Isak was so much more efficient at cutting that ring off and being more active that it ended up being a way more exciting fight. But on Rayo Venezuela's side, he didn't really, he was basically being the matador in this fight. I think Lamont Roach is gonna have an opportunity to really make an aggressive Isak Pitbull Cruz, who, for all intent purposes, although he's fighting at 140 and been fighting at 140, is really a 130-pound fighter in my personal opinion. That's how I look at Isak Cruz, right?
Right.
So here we're gonna have this aggressive Isak Cruz, and we're gonna have a Lamont Roach Jr., who's a big guy. There's an argument there against Isak Cruz that he's a big guy. You know what I'm saying? Not for the division of 140. Will that power translate? And Lamont will be able to counter and walk Isak into a lot of shots. And ultimately, I'm interested in seeing if Lamont Roach's power will be able to translate in this fight. Because if the power doesn't translate, Ray, Isak's going to try to drown him. Right. Yeah, the only thing that's gonna get the respect is power, or we're gonna watch Lamont Roach really get on his bicycle. And if you really watch his fights, he's not that kind of fighter. He really likes to stand in there and he likes to catch and shoot. And we saw what he did against St. David. So I gotta assume if I'm seeing him on his bicycle, that it's gonna look like to the judges that Isak is winning the fight. Right. That's Isak clearly chasing him around the ring. So it is going to be an ultimate litmus test for Lamont Roach, and it's an opportunity for him to solidify and cement who he is in the space. Just announced on the undercard, JANIBEK versus Erislandy Lara, finally 160-pound division, a very division, right? Not a lot going on there. Nobody's really standing out. I mean, if anything, JANIBEK would be the one who's a standout in the division. Arguably, JANIBEK, people would argue, should be at 168 by now. He's had complications making the weight at 160 before. Actually missed out on a fight because of the weight cut challenge. So there's that. And then we have Erislandy Lara, who's on his, the man's like 40 years old at this point. How old is he? 42 years old at this point. But look, he's still holding it together. We finding this new chapter of Erislandy Lara. The Erislandy Lara who fought against Canelo Alvarez seemed to be a more elusive mover, boxer, puncher. But we're seeing that Erislandy Lara as of late is, maybe it's because of his age, or maybe he's just evolving. They say power's the last thing that goes. He seems to be sitting down on his punches a lot more, right? He's sitting down on his punches a lot more, and we're starting to see him get a lot more stoppages. So this fight is going to be a very interesting fight. JANIBEK brings that Eastern European style that we've all learned to respect and appreciate in the ring, but also as a puncher in his own right. Where are you at in this fight, and how do you feel about this unification fight getting ready to chop up?
Man, I think Father Time wakes up on Laura, man. Unfortunately, I think JANIBEK is just like you said 168. I think that man belongs at 175. Let me keep it real with you. I think he's definitely the more powerful, bigger fighter in the ring. He seems to be hard to be dealt with. He's almost like a modern day Ivan Drago. He has power in his jabs, power in his street, where he's just stopping people with circumvent. You know what I mean? Like boom. You know what I mean? You don't even see it coming because you just think it's a regular, just quick jab. But no, he has stone hands, man. He's clapping these dudes left and right, and with these left and rights, man. And I said left and right with his left and right. That's crazy, diabolical. It's one of those days, Clay. But yeah, man, he's just doing what he has to do. Laura does have some movement. He still has a little slickness. I mean, that's his IQ is just there. He could probably get around all that, but I don't think he does. I think JANIBEK is just he's absorbent to punches. You can see it in his face. The dude look like he already beat up in his face. You know what I mean? Like people already punched on him when he gets in that ring. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know who I have in this fight yet. I am leaning towards JANIBEK, being the bigger, taller fighter and stronger. But Laura surprised me once. He surprised me again. I'm pretty sure he's, like I said, education of the ring does pay a big difference, and has his way of making its way through certain things. And it is what it is, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's freaking got to stop with the pause.
Yeah,
you know what I meant Come on, man.
You know that's that Philly thing, man.
Yeah, I
Salute
know. I knew you. I was gonna say the same thing. It's all right. I got him.
Salute.
You know
We got 27 people in the building. Let's make sure we're hitting that like button as we're stepping into the building. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, taking an opportunity, go ahead and do that. We got some super chats in the building. Carlos Dixon in the building said, "What's up, man? Salute to you, Carlos Dixon. Salute to you with the $5 and back again with another $5. Says a very interesting fight. 100%, man. Arizlandi. I'm thinking he's talking about the Arizlandi Lara. JANIBEK. I can never say his last name. I'll give it a shot though. Al-Kamanuli. Yeah, I tried. I'll just stay with JANIBEK and stop butchering that man's name. Salute to Carlos Dixon in the building, man. CJ Rich in the building, man. Salute to CJ Rick's Boxing and BS in the building. Says they keep flagging me, Clay. I need a content creation tutorial or something. Shout out to you and Ray. They keep flagging you. Let me tell you, man, that content sensitive in this space. That's why you don't see me just running videos in here all recklessly, just doing that. Like, I ain't gonna lie to you, bro. Like, you know, the other day, everybody was like, yo, put up the fight. I'm like, you know, I'm a little nerve-wracked about it. You know what I mean? Because they will demonetize you in 2 seconds. You'll get some weird email, you know what I mean, that you're demonetized. So yeah, man, take your time, man. Well, you gotta, what the old G's say back in there, you gotta stay dangerous out here, young bull. You gotta stay dangerous out here, you know what I mean? But yeah, real interesting fight, man. I think I don't know who I'm leaning towards to as well. Shout out to Mac Majestic, said he kept it 100. You know, we talked about it a little earlier. He says, I think the complication making weight for one and age for the other makes it interesting and maybe a more even fight. Yeah, I think so. Right. We got to see if JANIBEK comes in here and has a good weight cut and he's the best version of himself. You know, if you're asking me the best version of JANIBEK versus the best version of Arizlandi Lara get in the ring, what is it going to look like? Well, that's going to be a different conversation, but I think it's safe to say we're not going to see the best versions of themselves inside this fight. We're going to see an old Arizlandi Lara, and we're going to see a JANIBEK that may be staying at 160 a little bit too long, right? And we might be both. We have to factor in that those are the clashes of styles that we're going to see in the ring, and whose style carries better. There's a part of me that I'm not going to lie to you that's leaning towards Arizlandi Lara. And the reason is because Arizlandi Lara is doing the right things for his age. He's not moving around too much. He's catching and shooting. He's gotten more powerful. He's not cutting crazy weight. He led himself. He's going up to the middleweight. He's not competing at 147, 154. You know what I'm saying? He's not putting that pressure on himself. He's doing what I believe you're supposed to do in his position. Whereas JANIBEK may be towing the line a little bit. You know what I'm saying? JANIBEK might be hanging back just a little too long, and this might just be one fight too many at 160. And Arizlandi Lara has the aptitude. He has the IQ to take advantage of a fighter who's coming in there making those kind of mistakes. But at the same time, we don't know what kind of JANIBEK we're going to get in the ring. And if we get a JANIBEK even at 80%, what percentage is the cutoff percentage for JANIBEK? In other words, if JANIBEK is 85% of who he is that enough to beat Arizlandi Lara? You know what I'm saying? If is he 80%? Is it 75%? Does he need 90% of himself to beat Arizlandi Lara? So I think the fight is interesting. Without a doubt, a competitive fight. I'm excited to see the fight, and I'm also excited to hear about the conversation that's coming along with this fight, which is rumors of Terrence Crawford coming into 160 pounds, undisputed, potentially being a realistic thing that can happen at 160 pounds right now. When we're looking at JANIBEK, who's just been on social media saying that he loved to fight Terrence Crawford, now pursuing a unification fight against Arizlandi Lara. Carlos Adames is still floating out there, but we can use our imagination as to what fight that could potentially hop out there for Carlos Adames. Terrence Crawford also on the back end of seeing him and Turki Al-Sheikh having their little interaction where it looks like Terrence Crawford, for the most part, has an announcement that we should be expecting from him in the next month or two. As far as Turki Al-Sheikh has said, 160 is getting a little bit interesting on the back end of all those things coming together. What do you think about that?
I think that's absolutely a 100% accurate assessment. I think I do lean a little bit. I did say I think that JANIBEK's the better at the two at the moment, but I think if they're on even slates and one comes in off weight and you're getting the best of the best at their points, I do think Lara can outbox him. Like I said, that IQ in the ring is big. And I think it sets up, and let me keep it real, I think it sets up for a better fight with a Adames or Terrence Crawford coming down. As opposed to a JANIBEK. I think that's going to be a weird fight for either one of those fighters.
JANIBEK is definitely like the more, it seems like with the history of Terrence, the Eastern Europeans do present more competitive fights for Terrence, right? When you think of Victor Postol, when you think about Israel Madrimov, I think he'd probably rather get in there with Erislandy Lara, right? Like, or I don't know. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say Terrence is going to deal with whatever it is that's in front of him. But I do think we see a competitive fight. We watch a very competitive fight with a JANIBEK and Terrence Crawford. Whereas with Erislandy and Erislandy Lara and Terrence Crawford, I wonder and question. I know people feel like stylistically Erislandy Lara gives people the Terrence Crawford energy, but what Erislandy Lara? You know, sometimes people, when they speak on these fighters, they speak on the best versions. Are you talking about the version who fought Canelo Alvarez? Because that version doesn't really exist anymore, right? That's not the Erislandy Lara we know now. It's a different Erislandy Lara now, and this new version of Erislandy Lara, how competitive is that one against Terrence Crawford?
Well, let's even look at the one that fought Canelo for a second. Yo, he was putting hands and brakes on. People arguably say he won that fight, and that was the best Canelo that we actually seen. That people feel, because he was able to, he was still moving around the ring, he was still doing certain things that he was as a boxer. So if we give him that credit, I mean, that's a good fight right there in itself. But being an older Erislandy Lara, we seen what he did with Danny Garcia and dismantling that guy. And I'm not saying taking nothing away from Danny Garcia. I think Danny Garcia was in over his head. I think that was just a forced fight. Danny wasn't ready. I will give him more credit. I think if he had more time prepared, maybe another fight under his belt, I think it could have been a better fight with Lara, right? But I think now that we're into a situation where how this fight will play out, if Bud was to fight Lara, I mean, that in itself is a masterpiece. That's going to be a fight where you're going to have two people that are cerebral thinkers, two guys that have ring IQ, two guys that have been in there with the best fighters that you can imagine in and around their weight division.
And the common opponent, Canelo.
Right. And as we'll say, in the common opponent, which arguably we said, like, a lot of people believe that Lara beat Canelo. So that right there will put them both on equal playing fields, if not slightly above with Terrence Crawford. And the age, very close. So we're looking at we're looking at a cerebral warfare here with these two guys, and I think that is the way that the boxing should be. You know what I mean? It could be a boring fight, or it could be a very exciting fight amongst them two over JANIBEK. That's why I think it's more exciting fight, because I think that's actually more of a matchup. It's a chess match. It's not a checkers versus chess, or high school football team versus a pro football team. It's a real fight. It's a guy that's going to sit there. He's going to look for the weaknesses. You're going to see round and round. It may change and go either way. And the better man wins this fight. I don't think it's me getting in this ring and I'm just going to go in here and just do what I got to do and I got to be myself. No, I got to think now, because this guy on the opposite side of me is just as good, if not as smart as I am as well. It makes it a challenging fight for both of them. And I think that's the best fight. That's the fight to have, believe it or not, in my opinion.
You think Erislandy Lara and Terrence is the fight to have over?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just, like I said, I think Terrence Crawford has a history of being in very competitive fights with Eastern Europeans, and I think that fight does present some issues. But once again, JANIBEK hanging back also with the weight cut and all those different things. So we just got to see how all that plays out. But it does look like the 160-pound division. Terrence Crawford could literally bring that division back to life. Terrence Crawford announces his way into that division. I think the division gets a lot of attention. Obviously, Turki Al-Sheikh will take interest in that division as well. So a lot of other 160-pounders are going to start getting some attention and abilities to move around. Jahi Tucker is competing there right now, I believe, at 160, or is he at 168? I think he's at 160. Yeah, he has 160. You got Troy Isley, obviously, who's been sitting there. You got Necki there. You got a couple of fighters there, and maybe it might attract some 154-pounders who might be hanging out there a little too long to come up to 160 as well, right? What do you think?
I mean, look, we got a guy who could barely make the weight about to fight again at 160. That's Chris Eubanks Jr. still sitting there, who's also in Terrence's camp. Not to mention you have Troy Mosley Jr. You have a few guys there. Zefra, is that Rafa? How you say his name? Zerafa, whatever his name is.
Rafa.
Thank you.
I don't want to say he's trash. I mean, I'll say that. But
no, he's not. I don't think he's trash, man. I think he's been. Listen, I think he's been. Hey, listen, it is what it is. But he's still a good boxer, man. And you know what? it's the name of the game is boxing, Clay, and also
and I think Tim Zoo's also getting ready to come to 162.
Oh yeah, yes. He's out due, yes, because his brother's campaigning at 154, and I think he's moving up.
Yeah,
but I think what we forget is boxing is it's a skill game, but it's also a puncher's game. It only takes one punch, and that can change the whole complexity of the fight. Lucas Body, aka H2O, come and find out. You know what I mean? So we already know that it's an equal playing field once that one punch lands. So we don't know what happens. It's always the one you don't see. Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, there's a lot of fighters there. I think 160 is going to change the whole landscape. I think Earl Spence and even Homeboy going to move up. Charlo eventually going to move up to there. Maybe you see
Jamel has some decisions to make for sure as well. It's funny you brought that up because I was thinking about Jamel the other day in 160, and I was like, man, if Terrence is going to be at 160, we might see Jamel there because I don't know. Jamel's hesitating to show back up at 154. I don't know if it's the right offer hasn't come across the table or if he's waiting for the right moment to come back into the game. But if Xander Zayas goes ahead and locks down this Abbas Baharu unification fight, for me, it's kind of safe to say that Jamel Charlo is not that interested in being at 154 as much as everybody thinks he is. I know he's calling for the division. He's put out on the social media that's where the fight's going to happen. I'm wondering with the presence of Terrence Crawford at 160, with unifications and undisputed on the line and those type of big fights that may be on the line, if Jamel Charlo doesn't take a shot at 160. Even that Carlos Adames fight might be an interesting fight for Jamel Charlo. Both of them are PBC fighters. That's a fight that can be made at 160, and if Terrence is really going to show up at 160, then we might see listen, we have an opportunity for 160. We're speaking on it right now because that's what we do. We call it out as we see things develop. But I think 160 is looking like it's getting ready to be a very interesting division. Errol can pop up at 160. Jamel could pop up at 160. You got Tim Zhu about to pop into 160. Terrence popped into 160. Just painting a picture there for you guys.
We've got one more fighter, which is actually the opponent of Shane Mosley Jr., which is going to be Jesus Ramos. He's also jumping into
160. And Shane Mosley Jr. is there.
Right. That's what I'm saying. You're getting good fighters there. Yes, you'll have a top heavy division. It won't be like 154 where it's a hornet's nest, but it can soon be. You got a lot of guys at 154 that's probably going to be moving up. So I mean, Major's probably going to move up. If he's not going to get an opportunity at 154, which I don't think he's going to get one in Jalil Hackett, I think he might even make the move to 160, which we were calling for that, 2 years ago? I was like, if he's going to campaign there, just skip 154.
I feel like Jalil Hackett, whenever I see, I'm starting to read Jalil Hackett's patterns. And him jumping into this conversation about fighting against Xander Zayas, to me, once again, starts leaning into he did the same thing at 147 with Brian Norman Jr. He's getting ready. He wants to leave the division. He's trying to get a belt. He's not trying. Jalil Hackett, I'm interested in him being in a division where he's comfortable working his way up into a title shot. He gets a good victory, and now he wants to go directly at Xander Zayas and get a title shot. It gives me I'm ready to go vibes.
Right.
It gives me I'm ready to move on vibes, and I'm looking for a title. Am I crazy?
No, listen, he did the same thing at 147 and was openly admitted to that. He stayed at the division too long. He knew he should have moved up, but he wanted to get a belt, and that cost him. So I think it's the same thing here. I think he needs to hurry up. He's trying to hurry up and get something. Dude, just go in there and just get yourself an interim. Don't worry about these champions. Go fight who you can. Put your name on the map. But 160 was up for the taking at that time when you left 147. Prior to actually you leaving and losing that fight. Me and Clay were calling for that. Yo, even with Boots, we was like, bro, Boots can, we know he wanted to go to 154. If he's not going to get the fights, it's an open door policy at 154.
Boots is going to get the fights, but I agree with you though. But Boots is going to get the fights, but Boots has got great. I've been saying this about Boots ever since he came over to Eddie Hearn, especially ever since he became unified in the lineal champion at 147. But even right before that, he had great problems because there's a lot of fights on the table for Jaron Ennis. A lot of fights to be made. Virgil Ortiz, Xander Zayas, but also, 147 is obviously wide open for him to make some fights here, but 160 also can open up a lot of opportunities for him, and especially that Terrence Crawford fight. You got to ask yourself, if given the right opportunity, does Boots take that opportunity and go up to 160, or does he hang? Well, listen, hold up. I hear you, because I feel the same way. Why wouldn't he? But Boots, as of late, has become a way more strategic minded fighter. He's not doing what everybody thinks is obviously there for him to do. He's moving at his own to the drum of his own beat. And with Eddie Hearn there, does Boots play that game? Does he say, "Oh, I'm going to go to 160, but first I want to," right? Boots is one of those guys. I want to do this first. And listen, Terrence Crawford is not promised to be here. Every single fight he has at this point could very arguably be his last fight. Right. So if the opportunity does present itself to Jerron Boots Ennis, does he take that opportunity, go up to 160 and try to make legacy for himself and fight against the era-defining generational GOAT in Terrence Crawford, or does he allow that to slip through his fingers and hang back at 154 to quote-unquote lock in his legacy? What do you think about that?
This is what I feel about boxing, right?
And if he does it, and if he does that, all right, just to add on, if he does pass on from Terrence Crawford, will this be one too many pass overs on opportunity with Ron Ennis?
That's where I was going with it, right? That's where I was going with it, right? We've seen in the history of boxing, if a fighter doesn't, it passes on a fighter and the other fighter doesn't pursue them as they're intended to or the fans expect, then we get call outs, we get certain things happening, and it's always a fight that never happened. We've seen this in the case of what's the name down there with Sugar Ray when he went up there to call up Sugar Ray from 140. I forgot homeboy name. I don't know why I can't think of people's name right now, but it's all good. We'll get to there. Aaron Pryor. Aaron Pryor called him out, but Aaron Pryor, when given the opportunity, Sugar Ray had already retired, and then he came back and moved to 154 because he wasn't sitting there waiting for Aaron Pryor to move up when he wanted to move up. So when we look up at this division and we're looking at a Bud Crawford who's been known to leverage his belts to move up in divisions and offer opportunities to fighters, according to him, he offered to fight the Boots already, and they just didn't want to fight him at the time when he offered it. And then it moved around the room a little bit, and then Boots decided that he wanted to fight, whatever the case may be. I don't even care. Let's move forward from that moment. Let's go into the current and present time, where I think if Boots moves up to 160, it's a new playground. It's not so many open challenges for him. I'm sorry, not closed challenges for him. It's an open challenge. It's almost like he has a lot more freedom to move around in division, make a name for himself, because even though we don't know a lot of fighters at 160, Clay, they're still, it's a tough crowd. Where 154 is nothing but gamed fighters. It's nothing but big names. And I think 160 is an easier playground for him to dance in than it is at 154. And if he's going to take the opportunity to move up and be forceful and be a wrecking ball and have people move up, because everybody at 154 eventually going to move up. They're going to be there anyway. So now is the time to go capture all your glory, go get all these belts, and try to make yourself known at 154, even if it is to get a fight with Terrence Crawford, even if it is to dethrone Arizona Lara, or to go up there and stop a JANIBEK or Adames. Those are good fights that you can actually see Boots in, and he can easily win or lose, but in close contests. It let us know who he is. So is he really the guy that the fans believe? Is he the eye test? At 154, I don't think we get the same type fights. I think we get tough fights for Boots, and it makes Boots look superhuman. A lot of these guys are still in their prime. A lot of these guys are not. They're fearless. They're going to get in that ring. They're going to attack, and they're going to willing to take the 10 shots to get in there to hit Boots with something hard. And I do mean punches, frequent flyer frequency. So don't even go with the pause button there. But yeah, they're going to take their opportunity to hit them with some punches that's going to hurt. And I think at 154, he has a little bit more flexibility where he can move around, be a little bit more free and flow like Muhammad Ali and be the Matrix that we see him in that fight with Roman Villa in a fight at 160, because I think he'll be the slicker fighter easily at 160 as opposed to 154, where these guys just close down and they're fast enough to keep the pace with Boots. So it's a big difference in changing those divisions, and I think that will be the reason why I will put him at 160, and I think he can campaign there and make a better career than he would at 154. But then again, hey, he's willing to accept all challenges. I'm not mad at him. Let him campaign wherever he wants, and it is what it is. But it's a lot. Listen, 160 is an open playground, man. You got kids from every neighborhood getting in there and trying to fight for that jungle gym.
Right. 160 definitely looks like it can be interesting. It was dead. It's still kind of dead, but the right players can change the whole entire conversation at 160. And I think there's an opening there for it to happen. 2026, it looks like I called for 2026 to be a standout year for 154. I do question if Boots Ennis doesn't run into the same issues he did at 147 as far as getting those title fights. He's up there in those sanctioning bodies and those ranking structures, but when we look at the champions there, if we look at 154 right now, for example, we have a Boss Baru, WBA champion right now. He looks like, from what I understand, that camp is very open to fighting Xander Zayas in a unification fight. So as of right now, at this moment, I'm leaning towards that fight actually happening, unless Jamel Charlo makes some sort of statement there. In the WBC conversation, we have Sebastian Fundora, who's holding the title there. He's about to fight Keith Thurman. Virgil Ortiz getting ready to fight Erickson Lubin. They'll be fighting for an interim WBC title there. And those, once again, I don't know, with the PBC and Golden Boy situation and where Jaron Ennis sits right now as a matchroom fighter, do these guys fight Jaron Ennis easily, without Turkey, without Jaron? Because one thing that Jaron Ennis and Eddie Hearn has done is they've made it kind of weird with this whole entire Turkey situation. We know that Turkey's been very interested in working with Jaron Ennis, but they've been very, I don't know, bro. Something's going on there where it almost seems like Jaron Ennis doesn't want to fight with Turkey, right? For whatever reason. And that being said, that's well within his right to do that. But that being said, where's the big paydays? The one thing about Jaron Ennis is the paydays. It's always come up. The money is needed to fight Jaron Ennis because he's one of those fighters who brings a lot of risk, not that much reward. And without the backing of a Turkey, I fear that reward isn't there, and that those big fights are going to be very difficult for Jaron Ennis to make.
Right.
That being said, maybe easier for fights to be made at 160 for him. But regardless, Jaron Ennis needs to be involved with a lot of money. I'm sure he's asking for more money now, being that he's accomplished so much more, but also the fighters who he's looking to fight against want their biggest paydays to fight against Jaron Ennis. If this relationship with him in Turkey doesn't become solidified more, if this doesn't become a little bit more clear and a little more black and white as far as what's going on between him, Turkey, and Eddie Hearn and how they plan on working that out, I'm kind of fearful that he's going to go through the same thing he went through at 147, at 154. Yep. What do you think?
I totally agree. And we did mention one honorable mention that could also make a possibility of a move to 160. That'd be Fundora. He's also a big fighter for that division, and he can make that move to 160 as well. You know what I mean? He defended his title, 3 or 4 times already. He was unified at the division. Does he want to continue to fight there? Does he see greatest pastures and moving up? Like, that's another person we can put up there that can cause some wreckage and some problems at 160. So 160 is definitely an open game. But back to Boots and what he thinks and what you think about the Turkey situation is, Clay, there's a lot of good points that you make to that. I think there could be some biasness towards the Turkey Al-Sheikh thing when it comes to the fans of the United States. And Boots, I think, does listen to the fans. I've heard through the grapevine that there's people around him, in and around Boots' camp, that are not big fans of a Turkey Al-Sheikh. Let me just keep that real with you, as well as in media. And with that being said, that could be an influence of like, look, man, this guy's trying to set you up. Don't go over there. Don't mess with this dude. This dude, you know what I mean? It could be a lot of influence that's coming from other people, especially the fan base is talking, blah, blah, blah. And that could be a problem. Boots could be listening to the fan base of why Turkey is bad for boxing. But he's offering the biggest paydays. He's offering them multiple big paydays. Boots doesn't seem to be interested in money. Only seems to be interested in the legacy, and he's offered him the legacy as well. So it's not like it's been a one-sided horse race for Boots. It's been both legs. Like, you're getting paid and you're getting a chance for legacy and opportunity. So it's hard to really say where Boots is to grade this. You know what I mean? Where Boots stands with Turkey, because it seems that Eddie is very, very much so aligned with Turkey Al-Sheikh.
But Eddie's shown to be like very protective of Boots. Like,
that's what business. Right. He's also aligned with Boots in his career. He's been trying to put Boots in the right positions to capitalize on his glory. And I think he feels that he can make all these fights himself and keep it in-house at Matchroom or wherever the case may be. Boots may not get the super payday, but he's going to, obviously, as a promoter, he's going to get the reap the benefits, where You know, I think if he goes over to Turkey and Boots doesn't feel comfortable or wherever, because we don't know really what's going on. We don't. I mean, we can only speculate. L-Dub knows what's going on, by the way. Shout out to L-Dub. Y'all don't know L-Dub, please like and subscribe to the brother's channel because he does know what he's going on, and he is the boxing plug for real, for real. But anyway, L-Dub, that was just a segue. But now we're back to business. L-Dub, you owe me for that commercial. But yeah, man, if we don't really know what's going on in the space, we can only speculate. And Boots doesn't seem to. We don't seem to really totally know what's going on there, Clay. We just don't. It's a mystery, and I think shout out to Angelo. If we don't know, we don't know. We could only sit back and hope for the best, and hopefully that something will come out of this. I mean, it's supposed to be that fight with Virgil, right? That's supposed to be done deal in February. So he may have options of working with him. He just wants to get acclimated, but it is what it is. Tune-up fights is crazy though.
Yeah. I am interested in seeing how Eddie. I do believe that Boots needs that backing of Turkey, you know, and I know that's a strong word to use. Some people might feel like, wow, Boots don't need Turkey, and people get offended and they get jumping into when you say things like that. But listen, man, Jaron Ennis is a talented fighter, man. And shout out to David Benavidez, another fighter who we'll talk about a little bit later as well. But you know, a fighter who's coming to the light, right? Who's understanding that there are ways for him to make these big fights. And it's hard to balance the loyalty and it's hard to balance being a company man and still having your own career. You have to put one thing has to be ahead of the other thing. And, you know, David Benavidez came to the light and came to understanding that, listen, man, the front page of Ring Magazine, a fight with Anthony Yarde, big paydays, potential unifications, undisputed with Dmitry Bivol, fights with Artur Beterbiev. I need the backing of somebody. You know, the PBC is there to play a role in my career, and if they're not able to legitimately check those boxes anymore, then I have to take, you know, I may have to take matters into my own hand. Jaron Ennis simply, you know, Eddie Hearn's giving him these homecomings and at the Wells Fargo, but you know, what is Eddie Hearn's getting you without Turki Al-Sheikh? He's getting you Karen Kugadajian. He's getting you David Avanesian. He's getting you a very damn near a fight that almost wasn't made with Stanionis. We heard Tom Brown speak and say that he was actually advising Stanionis to walk away from that fight because they wanted more money. Ultimately, what did Boots have to do to make that fight happen? He had to give up money from his own purse. He doesn't want to do that again. So what does he get going into 154? He's getting Usima Lima, right? These are the fights that Eddie can make for Boots and get Boots decent paydays, but he's choosing to do that, right? Because he can also get paydays fighting the likes of the Virgil Ortizes. He can get paydays potentially fighting the Bakrams or, you know, whatever. He can get other fights with Turki Al-Sheikh that will get him the paydays, will be more competitive fights that I think are more legacy worthy for Jaron Ennis. But it does seem like it's always hitting this wall when it comes to Turki Al-Sheikh. It seems like once that move gets there, that Boots is like, you know, moving in different directions. One might put it on Eddie Hearns and say it's Eddie Hearns who's doing it, but there's also one could put it on Jaron Ennis as well, because like we've seen the Errol Spencers do, like we've seen the David Morrells do, fighters can take their careers into their own hands and make the proper calls to get into the big opportunities. And it seems like when it comes time to making a big fight, Boots does have the luxury of being like, I'm going with Eddie Hearn's way. So it'll be interesting to see if Terrence Crawford does make his move at 160, if there's an opportunity there for Jaron Ennis to fight Terrence Crawford at 160. Would Boots take that opportunity, or once again, would Boots, you know, does he have things to do at 154 and it's not about Terrence Crawford? It'd be interesting to kind of watch how that thing kind of spins out.
And the time is now. If he's going to go up to 160 and come back to 54, the time is now while he's still got his youth, while he's not really hitting that plateau yet, while he can move around in divisions. This is where it's at. And he might even feel comfortable there. I think that's another thing. Like, he might feel like he might be missing something if he does take that move. Just want to address Mines real quick. No big deal. It is a mystery, man, because we don't know what's there. His team has, I mean, he could pass the eye test all we want, but passing the eye test doesn't solidify what he has done with top competition, as you said, right? So we want to see him with top competition, But let's be in reality. Does he have to? And I'm going to defend both sides of this too. Does he have to go and fight the best to be the best? No, that's because he passed the eye test, right? So if he continues to pass the eye test, hold on, Clay. If he passed the eye test, what do we need to see him fight for? Right? That's what it is. But then at the same time, if you want to see him fight the best, doesn't matter if he passed the eye test. We want to see him fight the best because we believe he passed the eye test. Like that plays hand in hand. We want to see him be challenge and potentially take on somebody that he either can make look bad, that we feel that's better than him or on his level, or we want to see him look like, hey, there's a possibility that he's not who we say he is. So we have to be understanding to both sides of that. I think a lot of times we push certain things forward without understanding the whole other side of it. So the business structure, like Clay was just mentioning, like the whole thing with Terrence is an opportunity with for Boots if it comes up. But at the same time, does he have to go get it? You know what I mean? It depends on what circumstances and what's available to him. Nobody knows who Lima is, but do we knock down Lima because of Boots, or do we, you know what I mean? Or do we give Lima his praise because he's fighting Boots? It's a double-edged sword, as they would say, right? You don't know. I mean, Lima might go in there and show you something, but then again, does that take away from Boots' boxing ability and who he is? If Lima is better than who we thought he was, or if Boots goes in there and runs right through this dude and knock him out in like the first or second round, does that say who Boots really is and who Lima was? So, you know what I mean? We have to understand what this is, man.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I don't pass too much judgment, but I think what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Right.
Boots is in a great position right now. He has a lot of opportunities and he has a lot of people interested in doing business with him. He has Turkey interested in doing business with him. This is what I'm going to say. I don't think he has that many people who are interested in doing business with him. I want to take that back.
Right.
I want to be clear, right? I want to say that he has money that's willing to work with him that will make it easier for him to get the fights he needs to get.
Correct.
I think if Boots is honest with himself, he'll say that it was very difficult for him to make big fights because of the money. Now, I don't know what Eddie Hearn is saying to him, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, there's a billionaire or a PIF fund who's looking to work with Jaron Ennis and put him in fights. It does seem as if he's choosing not to go that route, which is okay. I don't want to say you have to, right? But I'm going to say that Jaron Ennis, for me, historically, just going over his track record, has been the kind of fighter, if he doesn't bring anything to the table, money and even titles at times don't seem that important, right? But if he doesn't have something, nobody just fights Jaron Ennis just to fight him. Right. Nobody does that. So there has to be some sort of game plan, and it looks like right now the game plan is getting him a title shot. Well, all right, well, he's about to fight Usman. Who's he going to fight next after that? I'm even hearing Virgil Ortiz is doing what I believe is the right thing. I know it's annoying for people to hear, but the man is a WBC interim title holder at a 154. If he beats Erickson Lubin, what does he do? Should he try to make a fight with Jaron Ennis, or should he pursue the winner of Keith Thurman and Sebastian Fundora? You know what I'm saying? It's a problem that people are going to be upset and say that, oh, he should go fight Jaron Ennis. Well, for what? Jaron Ennis doesn't have any titles. He has a name. He doesn't even have money no more attached to him because he's not allowing Turkey to put the fights together for him, right? So unless Turkey gets in there and puts a big bag of money in front of Virgil Ortiz, can we fault Virgil Ortiz for looking to pursue his own ambitions of being a champion, especially with Golden Boy advising him? And now we're looking at potentially, I'm hearing rumors, according to Floyd Schofield Sr., that there may be some like underlying issues between Oscar De La Hoya and Turkey Al-Sheikh, right? So now that we have that laid out there without a big bag of money and without it working out, Virgil Ortiz doesn't have to fight Jaron Ennis. Will he fight Jaron Ennis and volunteer to do that? Or will he go ahead and move on and try to find an opportunity with Sebastian Fundora and Keith Thurman? And that being said, if that happens, where does Jaron Ennis go there? Well, do you think Bob Arum is going to serve his fighter to Jaron Ennis, especially if Jaron Ennis beats, for argument's purposes, let's say he becomes a unified champion and he beats Abbas Baru, right, in their fight. Let's say they put that fight together. Well, is Bob Arum going to take Jaron Ennis, who has no title, and serve his young up-and-coming fighter who just signed this big deal with with Babs, whatever his name is, with Bunny Babs or whatever his name is,
Bunny or something
Babs
like that.
Bunny or something like that. Yeah, you know what I mean. So he's getting ready. He's arguably the face of Puerto Rican boxing right now, Xander Zayas, right? If he's not there yet, he's getting ready to be there, right? Does he serve him to Jaron Ennis?
No.
And if he does fight Jaron Ennis, Jaron's probably gonna have to go fight him in Puerto Rico, be the complete B side to it. I don't know how Eddie Hearn feels about that.
And the money ain't gonna be right.
And the money won't be right because Turkey's not involved in Jaron. The big fighters, I'm getting to the point where I'm willing to say that the big fighters need Turkey Al-Sheikh. The big ones, the ones who require $5 to $10 million guaranteed pay-per-view money on the back end or north of 10 million, you need. No, it doesn't seem like any one promoter has the ability to provide that kind of payday for their fighters. Am I crazy?
No, absolutely right, Clay. Everything you just said is basically what I'm saying in the shortest stint. Like, the opportunity it's hard for him to get the fight. Like you said, the eye test. That's why I was saying that whole eye test thing, that plays a big part. High risk, low reward, right? He doesn't have nothing to bring to the table. And unless it's a bag from, like you said, a Turkey Al-Sheikh or something like that, there's nothing there. So he's just going to sit there fighting the same old people in the bottom of the rankings, or he'll fight somebody that's tough that he could potentially lose to, and then we're gonna be like, oh, he really wasn't that guy. We don't want to continue to see that. We want to see him in the best fights possible. Only way we're going to get that is by him accepting these fights. And I'm glad you put that out there. If Virgil decides to take a U-turn and go fight Fedora, where does that leave us? Where does that leave us? And you got and Bob's like, yo, I'm not putting my young fighter in there right now. High risk reward. You have nothing to bring to the table. Bro, are you crazy?
I'd rather him lose on a unification. I'd rather
right. I go fight Bachman, bro. Like, why would I do?
Yeah,
and that leaves Jerron where up Ships Creek, right?
Right.
You know, so we want to keep it real, and the whole thing is, this is why I said 160 may be an even playing field for him and better ways to go, because him at 160
either 160 or dial in with Turkey, right? Like,
right. Or if he stays at 168, then you need to dial in. Now you got to figure out who's the tough fighters, who's the big names, who's going to move you up the ladder to get you a mandatory shot, because you gave up your opportunity when you were the IBF and the WBA champion just to push yourself forward to get moved into a championship opportunity. You gave that up. You could have went in there for a Bachroom, but you wanted this. Which they say tune up, which I still don't think he said tune up.
I try my best not to put it on Jaron.
Yeah. That's what I said.
But hold on. But at the same time, at some point or another, Jaron Ennis, and listen, we got to call spade a spade. I'm not gonna bite my tongue. At the end of the day, there's always David Benavidez. There's always Errol Spence. There's always Terrence Crawford. And who are all these people? And what do they? There's always Devin Haney. You know what these people represent? Fighters who have taken their careers in their own hands and been the one to call the shots as to where they're going. Jaron Ennis seems to be a fighter who hasn't yet done that yet. He hasn't yet sat down with Eddie Hearns and said, not him. Not this way, this way.
Right.
He's not doing that yet. So 50-50, we're going to say Eddie Hearn is guiding him accordingly, but we also have to give Jaron Ennis the accountability and say, listen, brother, are you playing Gervonta Tank Davis's game, which is I don't call nobody out, and whoever they put in front of me, I fight, and therefore you're not responsible for anything, even though you're the A side? Or are you playing the trendsetters game in the game? Are you playing the Terrence Crawford game, the David Benavidez game, the Devin Haney game? Are you making it happen? Right. Let me just go ahead and holler these super chats.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got two super chats here. One, Dub City Gritty in the building. Salute. Dub City says 47 had no names, worth the bread. 54 does Hearn will invest at 54 after he grabs a belt. I agree with you. I think Hearns. I think we also have to acknowledge that Hearns probably has the biggest budget amongst the promoters in boxing outside of Turkey. It's probably Eddie Hearns. I think the Zone. I think he's making good moves. I think there's good money with them. He just made a big deal with Jaron Ennis, so now he can maybe pay more for fights and collect his money on the back end somewhere. So yeah, there's more options. So we got to also watch and take a look at what Eddie Hearns does and how he moves and how he uses his leverage, because I do think he has money. Nowhere near as much money as Turkey, clearly, but enough to potentially, I agree with you, Dub City, there may be opportunities there for him to make something happen. But Jaron Ennis, also, I agree with you on that statement that he needs to collect those belts. If the mission statement becomes collecting those belts, let's do it. But if you run into a brick wall collecting those belts, I think we know who's going to be able to help you get across that finish line. And I don't know if they're willing to do that work, right? Shout out to Warrior Class 3 in the building with the $10 in the building, man. Salute, salute, salute. Thanks for the support. And Color in the chat today says, Bud Crawford laid the foundation for other boxers dare to be great. Talk about it. Let's stop mentioning Boots until he starts collecting all the belts, because other than that, what has Boots accomplished?
Right.
Yeah, man.
And
it's funny though, because the conversation wasn't about Boots, but it ended up being about Boots, because really the conversation was about 116, Terrence Crawford, and all the different players coming to 116, and Boots being somebody who could potentially, who has a story there with the quite frankly, the generation of the face of boxing, in my opinion, in Terrence Crawford. He has that storyline with that with Terrence from 147. So, you know, but I agree with you, like, you know, Boots has to show improve, and the eye test for me says Boots is one of those guys. But once again, you got to do it in the ring. And if you're not going to do it in the ring, how much can we argue for you, right? So it'll be interesting to watch Boots' journey as he tries to get it done in the ring.
Right. And like I said, last thing you want to do is give him in the ring with a Brian Adams.
I mean,
and that goes south.
That guy, high risk, low reward, brings nothing but a great fight to the table.
Right. That's what I just said. Right. and look, and then it goes wrong, and then we like, he's not who we say we was, and then his whole career goes into the trash can.
Yeah.
We don't want to see that, man. We throw these fighters away. You know what I mean? For a guy putting it on the line. And I think, you know what I mean, he had I think his opportunity was better to take certain fights at the time he should have took them. We were talking about that 2 weeks ago when we was talking about him moving up. I just think the better move is, all right, take this fight here, maybe fight another fight. Like that whole Josh Kelly thing, man, y'all should have made that happen. That guy won a little bit more money. That guy was the number one spot to Desire Desires. Y'all should have made that happen. Should have made it happen. But y'all didn't. And now look where we are. Now we're talking about Limas and this.
I mean, those fights are all awesome if you get somewhere, but if you don't get nowhere,
that's what I'm saying.
It's going to make those fights look bad.
Right.
It's going to make those fights look bad. Like if after Limas, and let me tell you, bro, I'm telling you guys, man, there's a good chance Virgil might go left on this.
I think he is. I think on U-turn.
Yeah, and if he does that, it's going to be complicated for Boots, man. I believe it's going to be complicated for him because, however you want to paint it, Boots is a high-risk, low-reward fighter, bro. And the only thing that makes Boots a worthwhile fight is the reward. But look at Canelo and David Benavidez. Did he deserve to get a fight with Canelo 100%? Did he get it, though? No, he didn't. He never got it. Because why? Because the reward wasn't there. The reward wasn't there. And I know some people might be like, oh, Turkey never made no offer to Canelo to fight David Benavidez for no $200 million. That's what Canelo asked for. As a matter of fact, when David Benavidez reached out to Turkey, what did Turkey respond? I'm not really interested in making that fight, but I'll tell you what, come up to light heavyweight. I'm going to give you some opportunities up there, right? So without that money, Canelo was like I said, bro, high risk, low reward with you, bro. Ain't nobody trying to put the bag behind a fight with me and you like you think. You think there's people out there trying to put this money up to see me and you fight, and they're not. They just talking about it. They want me to give you a fight because you earned it according to what you did in the ring, but nobody's following it up with money that makes sense to me in comparison to money I can get doing other things.
The same money fighting nobody's.
Right. It doesn't add up. So with Jaron Ennis, this is the situation at 154 without a belt. He brings absolutely nothing but headaches for the best fighters in that division. He brings nothing but issues, stylistic issues, potential knockouts, becoming what do you call those things, man? Potential meme knockouts. You know what I mean? Just horrible case scenario outcomes without no reward, not even a title. And in 147, a title wasn't even enough to get him the fights. Because Mario Brown was like, I don't need no title, I'll fight. I'm gonna fight somebody else. Brian Norman was going to do it, but he wanted the big bag. Stanionis finally did it, but you saw Tom Brown say, I was telling him, yo, bro, he ain't offering you enough money.
Right.
You should walk away from this. And Sandy Onis had to stand up and be like, nah, man, nah, bro. I want to, let's make a big fight happen. I want to be part of a big fight.
Right.
So Jerron and his team need to sit down and have a real conversation. I don't know where Jerron Ennis is at as far as acknowledging what we're talking about. Does he think we're crazy? Or does he think, is he putting it all on Eddie? Is Eddie promising him the sun, the rain, the moon?
I'm going to tell you what my hunch tells me. My hunch says that Fedora's going to be leaving the division soon, and that belt's going to become available. And I think he's telling him to be patient for that WBC. But that's just my hunch.
Hey, man, we'll see how it plays out. But that being said, I wanted to segue back a little bit into the Eastside Cruz Lamont Road situation. And we talked about that. We talked about Sebastian Fedora and Keith Thurman. But I want this to be, we're going to get on a topic that some people get upset about with us when we start talking about it. But whatever, right? It is what it is.
Bub's here. If Bub's not here, we okay.
Shout out to everybody in the building. Well, it won't be about Tank. Shout out, maybe it might go into Tank. I don't know, but shout out to everybody in the building. Make sure you're hitting that like button, please. Hit that like button if you haven't done it. Let's make sure we're doing that. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, take an opportunity to go ahead and do that. So, look, Eastside Cruz versus Lamont Roach, Sebastian Fedora, Keith Thurman. What's the commonality? There's a common thread between these guys, right? There's two common threads. I mean, one is the obvious elephant in the room, the PBC. It's PBC events. But the second one is this pay-per-view conversation that's starting to float around the space. People are really starting to push back ever since Turki Al-Sheikh and Dana White doing what he did with Paramount, and Turki Al-Sheikh, the statements he made with the Zone, and ultimately promising that 2026 will be a pay-per-view free year. There will not be pay-per-views. Honestly, from what I understand with the Zone, it'll be from November 22nd on. That'll be the actual beginning of no more pay-per-views, that these fights will be on these platforms. All you have to do is be subscribed to these streaming services or channels, whatever you want to call it, and you'll get access to these channels. Right. Ever since that has happened, the pay-per-view model has been taking a little bit more scrutiny. Now, me and you have spoken about it plenty of times about how the pay-per-view model was taking blows a year and a half, 2 years ago, saying that this model was not going to be sustainable. And any company that wasn't able to evolve out of this, wasn't able to adjust to the new world that we live in, was going to have a hard time surviving. And now the PBC, like I said earlier, combining the fact that their star players and Gervonta Tank Davis and David Benavidez have made moves to other networks, Netflix and David Benavidez going to the Zone magazine in Riyadh season. Now they're putting on these other fights, but they're putting them on as pay-per-views.
Right.
Lamont Roach and Isak Pitbull headlining a card with an interim title on the line is going to be a $70+ pay-per-view. Sebastian Fedora and Keith Thurman being what some people consider a shot fighter or a fighter who's out of his prime, will be headlining. Sebastian Fedora, this will be his first headlining card where he may be the star, right? Like he did headline with Tim Tszyu, which was kind of weird, but it ended up delivering. But since then has fought one other pay-per-view headline card with Tim Tszyu again, right? I think that was a pay-per-view card.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other two fights before that were free cards on Prime. So here he is headlining a pay-per-view card and the PBC beating this dead horse, right? They're beating this pay-per-view business model into dust, and now getting a lot of pushback even from their own fans. Where are you at this point with these fights, first of all, being on pay-per-view, and with this pay-per-view model in general in the PBC?
My thing is this. First of all, I don't even know if they still even have a network. I guess Amazon's going to give them the last fights. I guess they whatever they get out of this, because they had a fight deal, and I guess they found a loophole to get the fight deal done over top of the years of the deal. So it's probably one or the other, and we only misread the context of what that deal was. But it seems like they're definitely trying to get more out of this than necessary. The pay-per-view model has been a crumbling cookie, unfortunately. And the reason why it's been like that is because people are stealing fights. They even shut down services, right? They're shutting down services because of this. But still in all, shutting them down ain't gonna stop nobody from getting it. You know what I mean? There's always another door that opens up when you have these things going on. And people don't watch them. People are not buying them. People are not doing the same thing. I don't care if it's Gervonta Davis. He knew his money wouldn't be right. He's not trying to take back your money when he's seeing all these guys getting upfront money. Y'all can say what y'all want. I don't want to put on Gervonta, but I'm saying all these fighters are understanding. Pitbull and Lamont's owed some money. This is the way to satisfy Lamont's purse from the other fight and with this guy. So I think this is actually going to be the payback for a Lamont Roach. I think this is the way to get him a challenge, a good fight, a good bag. I think Pitbull is satisfied with the money he makes, $2-3 million, and he moves on from it. And I think this is more about Lamont making a bag because he's owed money for the fight that he just had, and they canceled on him, making him, so he doesn't go and follow suit with other legalities. I think this is just an old thing. It's kind of crazy to say that, Clay, but what other way they're going to pay him besides pay-per-view? Getting the numbers up, see if he's a seller, see if he's this. And you have Mexican versus American again.
But just gonna bring it back full circle, just as far as the pay-per-view model and this being a pay-per-view fight. How do you feel about this fight being on pay-per-view?
Oh, it's not pay-per-view worthy, but I think the fight, if I was getting there, I think with the demographic of Pitbull Cruz and the name that he brings to the table, and Lamont Roach giving a draw to Gervonta Davis, puts this fight in the eyes of that demographic of the Mexican and Latino fan base. I think it kind of helps spark that a little bit, and I think that will bring some numbers. But as far as it needing to be a pay-per-view fight, absolutely not. Why? Because the viewerships are showing that the networks can make money without pay-per-view. They're showing that the eyes viewing in can actually get more of a paycheck because viewership is more important. If people have Prime, what are they going to do? Everybody's going to subscribe that has Prime. They're going to watch the fight, and that viewership goes up. Now that paycheck comes in. The problem is the network, the promotional company doesn't want to split that viewership bread. They don't want to sign off those checks for that. And that's where it's coming down to being a problem. I think they're looking at pay-per-view models to get the bread into the pockets of these fighters and move these fighters along that way, as opposed to letting the viewership kick in and bringing that type of that bag. I think it's all money. It all comes down to money, Clay.
Right. I want to interject and say this, right? And I think the most important thing that I think you highlighted is the viewership. Pay-per-view is something that the idea of the model is to take advantage of culminated of momentum, right? You've culminated a lot of momentum that you've been building, and you make a pay-per-view because you've sold this event in a way to where people will be willing to pay to see the event, right? PBC and anybody who's using pay-per-view, like for example, the Conor Benn, Chris Eubank situation, no matter what anybody wants to say about that, is that a pay-per-view worthy fight? Yes. Why? It's built, it's earned credibility based on the first fight. Everybody remember the excitement of the fight. They want to see it again. These guys went at it. It was a close decision. They can see where Conor Benn can make some adjustments and win this fight. There's a storyline there. These guys are great at the press conference. All these different moving parts make it a pay-per-view worthy fight. You don't have to take it. You don't have to buy it, but I can see why they're putting it on pay-per-view. Now what the PBC is doing is, with the PBC is not acknowledging, and when a lot of the fans who don't want to acknowledge where the PBC is at right now, is that you guys are on a rebuild phase. You guys need viewership. Your fighters need viewership. They need to be seen. They need to be seen fighting, and they need to get fans, and you need to build back up. Shout out to Joe Biden. I'm going to say build back better, right? PBC needs to be focused on building back better. That's boxing needs this, right? That's why Turkey's doing what he's doing and Dana's doing what he's doing. They're more concerned about the viewership. They're like, we're not going to charge people a bunch of pay-per-views for these fights. I want as many people to watch boxing as possible. And the pay-per-view model legitimately redlines people out of watching boxing. It takes down your viewership. You get money for it for the people who do pay to see it, but on the back end, there's people who are not willing to pay for it. So you're not making the money, and you're making it more difficult. Even people who can go steal the fight, that's a pain in their ass. They don't even want to go through stealing the fight no more, because these streaming services, the fights will get interrupted, slow down, stop, they'll crash. So you're making it difficult for new fans to jump on the bandwagon of watching boxing, and it's hurting them, because the PBC right now, in my personal opinion, is not able to offer any up-and-coming fighter anything sustainable on paper that makes sense for them to sign to the PBC. PBC, to me, is becoming Def Jam Records. Def Jam at one point in time was the marquee label to be on if you was a rapper. But at a certain point when
Right.
Jay-Z took it over and other people took over Def Jam, it just became a name, right? It just wasn't. You were better off going with Interscope or going with Koch Records even. You know what I'm saying? Like, you were better off going with these other people who can actually help distribute your product in a more efficient way to more fans. And that's where the PBC seems to be stuck at right now, is that they're inside of this model that's not helping their fighters get bigger. Lamont Roach Jr. and Aesop Pitbull Cruz would have benefited themselves more to been on a free prime card. Why? Because they would have had more viewership. And you could build a Lamont Roach Jr.'s career, build his brand, build a following to him, and then eventually, after you put the work into building him correctly, put him in a pay-per-view situation that maybe he can give you a return that makes sense. This situation right here, you're completely riding it off the coattails of what him and Gervonta Tank Davis was able to muster up in that fight at the Barclays. And the missing piece of this is Gervonta Tank Davis. Lamont Roach was not the guy selling the tickets on that fight, and he's not going to sell the tickets on this fight. Aesop Cruz is probably going to be more of the needle mover pusher on this one, but he hasn't been in big fights. His last two fights, one against Angel Fierro, and his last fight that he had against
Salido Gomez.
Omar Salido, right?
Omar Salido Gomez. Yep.
Omar Salido Gomez. That Omar Salido just came off of a loss against Andy Cruz. So
gave him a fight too,
and gave him a fight, but no built name. So both these guys are not headliners, and then you put a unification fight on the undercard, which is these are good fights. I think JANIBEK and Erjan Lara are great fights, but am I willing to pay $80 to see that? I don't think I am. I'll be honest with you, and I don't know what the rest of the card is. Same thing with Sebastian Fedor and Keith Thurman. Sebastian Fedor is a young champion. He needs to be built up. Does he benefit by making people pay to see him? People don't know who he is. He's been in his exciting fights have been Tim Tszyu, and Tim Tszyu is a shot fighter right now at this moment. And we'll talk about him maybe a little bit later at 160 a little bit more, but he's a shot fighter. So these guys haven't built that kind of following to be sitting there putting these guys on pay-per-views. It shows the face of desperation to a degree. It shows that you guys may be stuck, because you'd have to believe, as a boxing fans, you'd have to believe that if they didn't have to, they wouldn't. Right? Like, they gotta know. They're smarter than that. They know that, and these fighters are not benefiting off of that. David Benavidez is going to exponentially grow his brand by fighting on a free card in Riyadh season, making his big bag of money with the viewership he's going to get, because nobody has to pay to see him fight. He benefits off that. So people are going to start following him and watching him fight. When he finally announces a fight with a Dmitry Bivol for Undisputed, it will gain the traction that it will need to be a pay-per-view fight, which it still won't be, because it's going to be underneath the Riyadh model, so it's going to be free as well, which is another part of the conversation, that you're putting these pay-per-view cards out there. You're charging people for these pay-per-view cards, but people have options to see bigger and better cards for free. So now you're like, I mean, you the business model is just working against. It's like, why are we going in this direction? Why is this happening? Why are you moving this way? It just shows signs of a ship that's sinking when it comes to any company that finds it necessary to continually deliver these pay-per-view model fights.
Exactly.
Right? It is what it is. Let me see here. HLD says, did you just quote the POS senile bastard? Oh, I don't know. I don't know if he's talking to me. Cardenas says, ain't no different than you can go buy a whole chicken cook for $5.42, but 6 to 2-inch wings, $6.99. That's interesting. Right. That's an interesting metaphor. Warrior Class says, one time, you mean Keith, no time Thurman, the strength used to be in his hair. Keith will not survive these body shots. I mean, and yeah, that fight's gonna. And that's another. I think Keith Thurman is a fighter who's just, man, bro. I mean, and then you think about the fact. I heard somebody talking, content creators talking about a big fight to make that they're trying to set up Manny Pacquiao and Gervonta Tank Davis. Brother, that is such a desperate fight.
That's a mismatch too.
If they put that fight together, it just shows how bad the PBC is doing.
Desperate.
If their goal is to put a fight between Manny Pacquiao and Gervonta Tank Davis, ill. I mean, when you're talking about money grab and you're talking about a fight that just, I think it'll sell, because I think Gervonta Tank is Gervonta Tank Davis. I think the casual fan doesn't know how shot Manny Pacquiao really is, especially when he just came off of his fight with Mario Barrios. But if that's a goal, man, bro, it's not a good look. It's not a good look.
Nope. And I think that's why you see a lot of things he can't talk about when he's talking in his press conference. I can't talk about this. I can't say this. I can't say that. You know what I mean? It is what it is, bro. It is
Yeah,
what it is.
I mean,
You talk about
Biden,
your Joe Brock,
Build Back Better.
comment.
HLD, you talking about Build Back Better? POS, ambassador. Okay, I got you. Yeah, I had the quote right, but the PBC is definitely going to build back better. They need to be building back better, and they need to be focused on that. And I don't know what they need to do that. In my opinion, a collaboration is needed to be put on the table and between them and somebody with money. So I'm hoping for their sake that the Tiafimo Shakur Stevenson rumors are accurate, that they'll be promoting and putting it out on their brand, and that Turkey will just be financing it. And I hope that opens up the door to a lot of future plans with them doing some other things. But both these fights, both these being pay-per-view fights, they're not. Everybody knows that now at this point. People understand that that's not, man. It's not a good look that the PBC continues to force feed people these events as pay-per-views, man. It's not a good look. It's not a good look.
Peace, Blue.
My brother Blue Blood Sports TV in the building. Salute, Blue. What's good, family? Let me see here. I want to go ahead and let's segue into this. Do you think you can hold it down for a second?
Yeah.
Hold it down for a second. I'll be right back.
I'll keep tapping in on this. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, my whole thing is with this whole thing with this what Clay is talking about, this pay-per-view model thing. I mean, it is what it is, right? I think you're putting you're putting the onus on fighters that don't bring that type of audience. And I think, like I said, Pitbull will bring it, but I mean, you're basing it off a hunch. You're basing it on something that you think that's going to work. And I'm pretty sure for $70, $80, whatever the price may be, it's not going to be worth the value of this fight. I think we're putting ourselves in a position definitely to discredit the fighters, because if it doesn't sell, what are you going to do? You're going to blame it on their common opponent, or you know, be like, look, this is why we need this guy, or we're going to look at it as like pay-per-view is really dead. PBC has a really hard time moving the needle on these fights, and I think that if you take a look at what Clay said, the whole David Benavidez thing was very significant. When you talk about fighters and you go to Top Rank, right? Top Rank's been on ESPN Free TV for quite some time. They started doing the streaming thing, and you hear these guys, even on DAZN, you start hearing some of these analysts, they talk about the fighters on the PBC card. They talk about champions because they want to bring these guys into the light, and they want to make sure they're talking boxing. But you hear about it as a fan, and you're like, okay, they're talking about it. So how many times have David Benavidez, the Mexican Monster, have been mentioned on YouTube channels, has been mentioned on Top Rank, or been mentioned on other free networks? And you have these casual fan bases that watch these fights occasionally, and they're sitting there saying, hey, we're hearing about this guy. I want to see him fight. And then the PBC goes and put him on the card for $90. You're like, I'm not paying $90 to watch this guy fight. Is this guy really that good? And then, you know, he goes out there and he lays an egg, excuse me. He's not giving you the fight he was. And you're like, what is this hype about all this guy? But then if like Turkey does, he puts him on a free card. Now you get to see what he's about. Now you've been anticipating, because you never bought the pay-per-view with him on it. And you're like, I want to see what this guy's about. They're talking about this the guy Canelo was running from. I want to see what he's about. You get him out there, you see him for free, and you're like, yo, this guy's really good. Now that puts more eyes on this guy. That puts more perspective on what he is and what people have been talking about this whole time. So the model of free networking and able to put viewership on fighters is very important, especially for building their careers. The pay-per-view comes when you have the total matchup, when you have the iron versus sharpening iron. It's too many of these fights are just, you know what I mean? We got a knife stabbing pillows out here, and excuse me for saying that. I hope we don't get flagged for that. But you know what I mean? That's what we're saying. We got like people out here that are the better fighters, and they're fighting these softer fighters or people that we don't believe lives up to the challenge. And then we're like, we're paying for this? Why? And that's what it comes down to. And I think that was a great analogy of the David Benavidez scenario with Turkey. And I think that lays it down perfectly, Clay. Shout out to JR Spot. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, salute to everybody in the building. Let's make sure we're hitting the like button as we're stepping in the building. For sure. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, take a moment to go ahead and do that. Yeah, it's something that they're gonna have to address. It's getting a lot of pushback. You're watching a lot of fans of the PBC, you know, really starting to push back and come to the light to acknowledge at least the way it's starting to look. It is starting to look a certain way. like whether you believe it's happening or it's not happening, it's getting harder to argue against the idea that something's going on over there with the money. And if a solution doesn't pop up sooner rather than later, it doesn't look very good for what's going to be happening with the PBC in the coming years. It is what it is. You know what I mean? I want to segue into we have an event that coming up. Obviously, the next big event is probably going to be the November 22nd event, right? I mean, we got events in between that. Obviously, we have Jaron Ennis and Usman Lima coming up next weekend. The following weekend, I believe we have Sebastian Fedor and Keith Thurman, and in early November we have the Virgil Ortiz Erickson Lubin fight. But the big event that everybody's looking forward, potentially might be the event of the year, is going to be this David Benavidez headline card with Devin Haney and Brian Norman Jr. as co-headliners on this card. We got a great, that's probably one of the best cards of the whole entire year right there, if not the best card of the year. But a lot of now Brian Norman Jr., circulating some pictures and videos of what he's been working on. We see Devin Haney as well circulating videos and pictures of what he's been working on. And we're seeing a Devin Haney that's bigger, working on more power, working on things as far as what the videos are showing to lead us down the road of believing that he's acclimating well, right? He's looking like he's looking pretty good, getting ready to go up at 147, that he's doing a good job of, if people want to consider it, bulking up or cutting less weight, however you want to look at it. And Brian Norman Jr. seems to be working a lot more on his, on his agility, as he's anticipating a moving Devin Haney. A Devin Haney is going to probably be standing behind that jab, and a Devin Haney that he may have to cut the ring off on. And Devin Haney is preparing for Brian Norman that he needs to get the respect from, right? He needs to be able to deliver some kind of power, produce some kind of danger. Got to give something for Brian Norman to think about to get that respect, so Brian Norman doesn't just walk him down or, just stalk him the whole entire fight. Have you got the opportunity to see any of these videos and pictures?
Yes, I think I've been talking about it for quite some time, literally. And I was telling you, and thinking private conversation, I was like, "Yo, Devin's working on his left hook. Watch it." I think I told everybody, and they thought I was crazy because I said I think he hurts Brian Norman with a body shot, and I think he might stop him. That was just a thought of mine. Thought doesn't mean I think he. I mean, what I foresee in the buildup of the fight is not my final take on the fight. Let me just be clear. I still think it's a 50-50 fight, and it can go either way because I do respect Brian Norman Jr. I think he's a great fighter. I think Brian Norman has moved into an element of proof that I can move in the ring, proof that I can cut off the ring, proof I can be elusive and a slick fighter. And I think that's where the damage comes in. I think that's where the problem is. I think he's been sucked into, I'm a knockout artist, right? And I think the fighters that he's been beating by knockout, besides Centillion, I think all those guys were guys that we could be like, okay, yeah. Are those really those guys? Are those the guys that you really should be fighting? I mean, come on. We had Cuervez. Cuervez was out the ring for 2 years. Gave Brian Norman a good first round before he gassed out and got knocked and got stopped. Then we had Jen Sasaki, who literally just put his head down and bulldozed and said, "Look, I'm going to take your best shot, and I'm just going to punch you back because I want to stop you." Because he was trying to stop Brian Norman, ended up getting his head knocked out for 2 weeks. I mean, he didn't even know where he was. And then the fight prior to that was was it Salido, right? Well, not Salido, excuse me. Wrong guy. Burchaks or whatever. That fight was canceled.
Which fight you talking about, right? We talking about Brian Norman?
Before Centillion. It was
Boca Chica.
Boca Chica, thank you. That guy put him on his pockets with a shot that he didn't see coming, and that's because he walked into it. So there's a lot of elements, and this is no disrespect, but this is just mindset of developing, living, and learning. I think he's learned from those experiences. I think he's grown each and every experience, but so has Devin. I think Devin's situation is different. I think he's came in there with, and this is not me defending him, I think he came in there with the hard defeat of, even though it got reversed, of Ryan Garcia. I think that was a hard pill to swallow. I think he got back in that ring to rematch that fight, and he played it safe. He coasted through it. He looked terrible doing it. He was heavily criticized. I criticized him as well. I think he did a little track star a little bit. You know what I mean? Them shoes was definitely fresh out the box. Don't get it twisted. You know what I mean? But I also think that he has an element that we have not realized he has. Devin has also been a guy that will sit in the pocket and exchange with you. His downfall, and I've watched this. I want you to pay close attention to what I'm saying, y'all. When he fought Kambosos, he fell for the left hook, going in there a little too aggressively, and got caught with the left hook by Kambosos in that first fight. It was very, very clean and plain to see. So it's very possible that Devin can go in there and get clipped, or Devin can go in there and outbox and use that newfound power at the division that he's at, where he's comfortable at. He ain't got to move up no more, move down no more. Right where he's comfortable. I think the weight translates. I think the power comes back that he had early at 135. I think we start seeing him. He just needs to get over those shadows. Every time he sees a shadow moves, he's got to stop acting like what's homeboy name? Like Casper's there, and he see a ghost. He needs to go in there and continue to win. He can't do what he did with Regis and have Regis on the ropes and not finish him. I think this time, I think he shows a little bit more power than we're used to seeing him use in a fight, Clay. And I think Brian Norman is going to come outside of his element, and that's going to be the change. We heard Brian Norman talk about the counter punching ability. We heard Brian Norman talk about the stopping ability. And if you're going in there with that mindset of only one way of fighting, I think that's a bad way to go in there to think so. And that's why I said I think Devin wins this fight. In my opinion, for now, because I think the mindset of Brian Norman is the game plan is to stop Devin. And I also heard Brian Norman Jr. give Devin credit for who he is. So on both sides of that, I just want to see how we look at this as the building of this fight comes along. And I think that we have both good talent, and I think we'll see what's going on. I don't know, HLD. The same power that Tio had at 135. He only stopped 3 people. So no worries, brother. Salute.
I think, listen, man, I don't think Brian Norman, if Brian Norman is, I'm gonna be fair, right? I want to say that I disagree with the idea of him coming in with one mindset, because he's not coming in with one mindset. Because if he's coming in the ring thinking about stopping Devin Haney, well, that's what he does. But if we're also seeing him working on boxing and moving around and being slick, then that's a complete different mindset. So I think already we're seeing Brian Norman acknowledging the elephant in the room and understanding that he may have to show the tools in his bag. He plans on bringing those tools out. And I think there's an argument there on both sides. I think Devin Haney at the same time is also showing something. He's been that fighter who's not had the power. He hasn't been known to have the power. He doesn't turn the right hand over correctly. He has little technique flaws that he does that make it a difficult uphill battle for him to deliver power. I think there's an argument to say that he tried to do that with Ryan Garcia. He tried to deliver the power, and he tried to stop Ryan Garcia, and he tried to be an aggressive fighter in that fight, and it got him what we saw it get him in that fight with Ryan Garcia, outside of the Osterine and in the other elements that were involved in the weight drain and the blown weight cut for Ryan Garcia. Outside of that, we saw Devin get hit pretty hard in that fight, and we saw the power not really translate well in that fight with Ryan Garcia. So if Devin's coming into this fight to fight against Brian Norman, and he's trying to fight a fight like what I hear he's doing in the camp, if he tries to see that translate in the ring. And another intangible here is Turkey Al-Sheikh, and the fact that Eddie Hearn commented on Devin Haney being more of a prize fighter now, that he's looking for the money now, that he's not making fights strategically anymore. He's not chasing exclusively legacy and championships. He's also chasing money. And that, Turkey Al-Sheikh is making these matches up, not because they're helping Devin per se, but that, these are fights that Devin can lose. So he's in the ring right now with a fighter who arguably people can say, listen, this guy has the youth. This guy has the arm reach. Devin doesn't have these advantages that people have argued he's had in other fights he had at 135. And even at 140 against Regis, people try to argue that he might have been weight bullying in that fight when, you heard about the famous 25 overnight rehydration and all those things, whether they're true or not, just highlighting the idea that people have always pushed back at these things with Devin Haney. And it doesn't seem like those advantages are going to be there for him in this particular fight. This is more of what people would call maybe an even playing field for Devin Haney. Now, and we always talk about the psychology of what happened with Ryan Garcia, how that may translate as well. Brian Norman is an acclimated 147-pound champion. He's a real champion as far as I'm concerned, 147, even though he didn't beat Terrence Crawford for that WBO title. That Santillan fight was definitely a walk through the fire to a degree. He was able to, that was a game Giovanni Santillan that he was an underdog for in that fight, and he was able to perform the way he did. Now we're talking about what the elephant in the room is. I think people try to speak towards Brian Norman being the one who's going to be outside of his element boxing. I don't know if that necessarily is true, because if you listen to Senior and you listen to people who are in the Brian Norman Jr. camp, they'll tell you that this man is very athletic, very light on his feet, very good educated feet, and that he's actually a great boxer. People from his camp obviously would argue that he may even be a better boxer than Devin. I don't know if I'm ready to go there, right? But I'm going to say that there's also the possibility that Brian Norman is well within his in his backyard with Devin Haney, that he has everything squared away. Devin Haney has shown that when he jumps out of his comfort zone, like he did against Linares, like he did against Ryan Garcia, he's shown that when he gets out of his element, when he begins to take more chances and go for things a little bit more, that when he gets clipped, he gets hurt. Now, I personally have been attributing that to low punch resistance due to bad weight cuts. That's where I've been with it. When it came to him getting clipped in the Linares fight, or even him being clipped in the Ryan Garcia fight, I thought those were bad weight cuts and that he just didn't have the punch resistance there. So I'm hoping and assuming that he's walking into this fight at 147 with a better punch resistance, because he's not making that aggressive weight cut. I think it's going to be a super interesting fight based off what I'm seeing in the videos, because I'm seeing both fighters work in areas that fans don't think they are superior in, right? I'm seeing Devin with the power. Oh man, it's like, Devin, you're supposed to be the boxer. You're supposed to be moving around and, you know what I'm saying, have the footwork and the jab, but you're working on the power. I'm seeing Brian Norman working on the athleticism, jumping rope a lot, moving around the ring, working on his foot movement, doing something that most fans don't believe got him to the big show. Most fans are operating on what they've seen him do against Giovanni Santillan, Derek Cuevas, and what he did against recently against Jin Sasaki. They're not doing the footwork and the speed and the athleticism. They're doing more so the power. You're watching both fighters work on their weaknesses on these videos. I don't know if that necessarily translates into their game plan going into the ring, but as you said, as the fight gets closer and closer and closer, it becomes more interesting, because if it does end up being, and I'll compare it once again to, like, let's say Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev. Going into that fight, I said Artur Beterbiev is going to have to box better than he's ever boxed, and Dmitry Bivol may have to fight better than he's ever fought. Right? Both these guys had to be like strong in their weak departments, because they both were good enough to take advantage of each other. And we saw that Dmitry Bivol was the better boxer in the ring, but fought better when he had to fight. When he had to fight, he fought better. And Artur Beterbiev boxed decently, right? But didn't box better than Dmitry Bivol when it came to the boxing. So where Dmitry Bivol edged Artur Beterbiev was in those fights. In the fights, he was able to take more of the fights, and he took the decision, because the boxing he clearly was winning. Whereas Artur Beterbiev competed well in the boxing, but never really won the boxing, and he gave up some fights to Dmitry Bivol. So ultimately, it made sense for Dmitry Bivol to win this fight. So when when Devin Haney fights against Brian Norman Jr., I think it's going to be very similar. Whereas Devin Haney is going into this fight, and people are assuming the better boxer, but he's going to have to win some fights in that ring with Brian Norman to get that victory. Yep. And Brian Norman is going to be the fighter who's going to be able to box, and he has to win a lot of the boxing exchanges with Devin Haney and dominate in the fights. Mm-hmm. It's a 50-50 fight, man. I'm telling you.
What fight did I compare this to? I think I sent the video to you once, and I said, this is how I see this fight playing out. And I said, it's going to be a war. It's from 87.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Hagler Leonard, right? Leonard did the same thing, right? And I said that, right? And I said Hagler he adjusted his fighting tactics to Leonard. He didn't go in there being the same fighter, because he knew the elusiveness and the punch, the dance ability, the movement in the ring, the slickness of Leonard. So he went there being a little bit more slick than he should have, and he went in there trying to be slick being a switch hitter. He didn't even switch that much, matter of fact, in that fight. And he went in there and used power only when he got him in corners, but he didn't use that power. This guy's just a clown. Anyway, but he literally did that type of fight, right? So we're looking at two combatants that are totally different fighters. One that we're known for power, that can box, right? Hagler can box, Hagler can dance, Hagler can do a lot of things in that ring, but he was known for a knockout guy. He was known to be that guy that gets you in there and gets rid of you. He wasn't playing with you. Leonard was that guy that had been sat on his pockets multiple times in fights, still came out on top, was able to box, was able to overcome all the obstacles, was to be that guy. He was the star name, he was the Olympian and all that stuff. So he was able to be that guy that was able to make people feel that he was the dream, right? Unfortunately, there's no pun intended on that, but he was the dream fighter. He was the guy that was the perfect fighter. So when you got those two guys together and Leonard moving up 2 weight classes to fight Hagler, which Devin just moved up 2 weight classes to fight fighting Brian Norman, it's going to say, where is he at in this fight? How does his power translate? How does his punch resistance translate, as you mentioned? How does his counter ability work in this fight? How does that jab lead him in this fight? Does it help him? Is a mistake still going to happen? But then we look at the other end of it where with Hagler, I know he's funny, Clay. We look at the other end of it.
Look, hold on real quick. Before we go any deeper into this, I'm going to cut this video off soon and we can get back on. I wanted to stay in the 2 hours because I got this thing I'm working on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that. I'm going to stop this here and we'll go back up. If you guys want to jump back in, we'll jump back in and get into this conversation because I also want to talk about 168-pound conversation.
Yes.
I want to talk about what's going on up there. So you guys stay locked in. We'll be back. It's that boy Clay, it's that boy Race at ATV Combat Media Show. Tap back in. We'll go right back up in about 5-10 minutes. All right.
5 minutes. Yep.
Salute.
Who knew I would make it this far? They hated they